Hold on. There we are.
All right.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Manic. I just saw your name. Manic Wednesday. This is Sports Channel 8, the streaming. And, of course, when Duke lost the other day, Ben Swain was nowhere to be found. And there was a lot of people online wondering, doing a well check for him.
Yeah, there's a lot of bro care. People wanting a wellness check for Swain.
They needed to hear from him. That's another thing in itself. Like it's kind of a weird thing, but do you people?
Yeah.
And then now the Tar Heels lost the other night, and now we can't find Hayes Permar.
Yeah, nowhere to be found.
Everyone is dodging the spotlight when their team loses. We're not, because I'm a Tiger fan and he's playing golf, and you're a Hornets guy, and they made the play. They made the playoffs. So.
But they also literally lost last night. So yeah, I'm not dodging. If there were BG haters out there that wanted a pound of flesh from me after the Hornets got throttled on the road for the second straight game, including at Miami last night in Philadelphia. On Saturday, here I am. I am here to take ownership that the Hornets are a mediocre basketball team, which they've been since literally the season started. So.
I do have an NBA question for you. We'll get to in a second, because as college basketball ends, like I've learned that I can really only consume like one sport at the time. Like I don't have the bandwidth, and like even college basketball for me, I only really consumed it the last like 2 weeks, and that's primarily because A, it was a tournament, and B, I had a baby, and so I was actually awake when games were playing. So
yeah, you were mentioning how you had a couple weeks ago you were saying you were like seeing the game at a new level after having this kid, because you were I watched
West Coast. I was in the hospital watching West Coast Pac-12 hoops, and I watched a bunch of games that I normally would never see. And ironically, I did not watch any of the UNC game on Monday night because I hit the sleep wall. So, but I can't consume a lot. So like I saw something this morning when it comes to the NBA that just blew my mind. And so I got to ask you what the hell happened in that sense. But let's go back to Monday real quick.
Yeah.
Again, I literally saw zero of it, and that wasn't being a hater State fan, basically trying to avoid it or saying, I'm not watching this. Like, no, I actually intended to watch it. I literally just fell asleep putting my daughter to bed, the 3-year-old to bed in her room, and basically didn't wake up till like 12:30, and I woke up to 400 unread texts between a bunch of different group texts with State fans mostly and such. Yeah. So I had to go back and like do a quick of what happened, and I was like, looks like they were down early, then they took a big lead, and then just kind of is as simple as saying like didn't really make a lot of shots in the second half, and Kansas is also pretty good too at the same time.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. I mean, they shot they were under 32% from the field in this game. Really it was their offensive rebounding that kind of carried them, and they got damn near half their misses. Really, that was like kind of the thing that was like, I think flew under the radar for UNC in the postseason this year. Like they mashed people on the offensive glass in the NCAA tournament, like crushed teams, including Duke, but especially Kansas. I thought Kansas did a really nice job defending on the ball in the second half, especially. And I thought they did a nice job scheming Manic out of the action for UNC, switching on him a lot and then switching back behind the play. And then I also thought something that really worked for Kansas was like UNC had Leaky Black guarding Kansas's best player, Ochai Agbaji. And Agbaji is not like Ben Caro or like he's not where you're going to isolate him, nor is he like Jerion Sebron, where you're going to run a bunch of pick and rolls for him. Or is he Armando Bacot, where you're going to like post him up or whatever. Like he's the guy that you run off screens, and I just thought Kansas, I don't think they were trying to necessarily get Leaky Black in foul trouble, but there was this like effort early in the second half to, all right, we're going to run Agbaji off of down screens and get him curling to the basket. And Leaky picked up 2 pretty quick fouls that forced UNC to go into their bench at a time when they probably didn't want to do that. And then also just like Kansas played closer to their level of expectation in the second half too. Yeah, I mean, UNC missing Armando Bacot for a critical possession because of an ankle injury, having Puff Johnson like almost vomit on the court, Caleb Love tweaking an ankle too. Like, you know, they were kind of just like running out of steam at the end. But I do think that win had more to do with Kansas, honestly, which was just that Bill Self is a great coach. They've got a ton of talent and they've got pieces that fit. And the sides of the matchup that favored KU really like went to work, I think, in the second half. But it started with defense and getting Leaky Black in foul trouble, in my opinion.
Is Kansas is like the most non-hated, like blue blood. Like they're like so off my radar of like hate.
Yeah.
For a team that's really good. I just went and looked. They haven't missed the NCAA tournament since 1990.
Yeah.
and I guess the biggest issue, I guess the reason maybe is because for a while there, they didn't win it all.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't win it all until Bill Self, right? Roy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they won the title in '88 with Danny Manning. There's this gap basically. You know what I mean? Of winning.
It's weird that like they're always really good. They're always a top 5 team, and no one really like people hate Duke. People hate Kentucky. UCLA is kind of irrelevant now, but people hate. Well, the UNC thing I want to get to. People hate UNC, but they hate UNC locally. Weirdly enough, this UNC team, and I don't know if it's just because you're prisoner of the moment, but it almost felt like UNC became like America's team from like a national standpoint, which I don't understand that phenomena. Like where that comes from, or why they are like I mean, unless you hate Duke so much that you have to pick the other team and they just happen to line up. But there's a lot of people wanting them, rooting for them to win Monday night.
I think that was a product of like the Duke hate, and then like I just think Hubert Davis like his personality kind of shined through in the postseason. I think people liked seeing him be animated and like excited. And then also like Armando Bacot just like said some cool stuff too that I think that like quotes that got aggregated. And I just think all of that piled up into, making what is already an exceptionally popular fan base, probably, bring on a few more like stragglers in terms of fans or whatever. But yeah, I agree with you on Kansas. And it's like, they win all the time. Like they just lord over the Big 12, which is an excellent basketball conference. They put tons of guys in the NBA too, like tons of guys in the NBA, and like very good, like really, really good players into the NBA. They recruit. They have obviously if you're in Kansas, you're gonna be that good. You can't just recruit. The state of Kansas, they've got like a nationwide recruiting operation that pulls from both coasts. Like Devontae Graham went to Kansas from Raleigh.
Pac Pro. David McCormick literally had his first offer
from state.
Yeah,
there was, and even Duke recruited David McCormick. They wanted him in the Zion 2018 recruiting class. Wake and Danny Manning went after David McCormick. So yeah, he was considered. I think it'd be like if Armando Bacot had ended up at Kansas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you even have like MJ Rice, who I believe is from Durham, is a 5-star in the 2023 class. Like he's going to. I think he's played prep basketball outside of the state of North Carolina, but like he started at DA, and like he's heading to Kansas next season too. So they pull from everywhere. They put guys in the pros. They win the conference seemingly 2 out of every 3 years, and they frequently like make pushes for national titles and Final Fours. So yeah, it is interesting that they don't have maybe that's just because they're a little bit further away, but I don't know. They seem to be lacking the Duke hate. The Michael Jordan like golden touch of UNC, and just like the rabid, insane fan base of Kentucky.
From a basketball standpoint, I think you never look at Kansas if like they're good, but for whatever reason we don't think they're scary. Like Kentucky might be, right, or Duke, or even North Carolina. Like they're a 1 seed, but there's no you could beat Kansas. A lot of people beat Kansas before. Like
I think part of it too is that they don't recruit as great as their recruiting is. They don't do like what Duke and Kentucky do, where it's like entirely like every other year or every year we're rebooting the roster. It's like, 5 blue chips coming in every year. They do something that's probably closer to, I don't know, UNC probably is probably like maybe the closest facsimile, or like.
Well, UNC only did that, BG, because the NCAA cloud for 8 years. They remember if that does not exist, they would have got
Brandon
everyone that Duke and
Ingram.
Kentucky has got over the last decade. Remember that.
That's true. There's no denying that. It's just it's
and everybody would have stayed every year too, right? Like they would have got every one and done, and somehow all of those guys would have been 4-year starters.
Yeah, Brandon Ingram would be on his 6th year of eligibility at UNC if not for the NCAA cloud parked over the top of Chapel Hill. But I think Kansas is like, they're almost like super Villanova in terms of recruiting. Like they just get guys that are generally like, there's going to be some one and dones, but a lot of them are like top 25 guys, top 30 guys that stick around for a couple of years. And like, I think the last couple of years I've grown to appreciate Bill Self as a coach more. Like he and his staff, like they're just good. Like it's just it's a good team. They coach guys up. They have good X and O's. They develop players. They just like check a lot of boxes. And some of those boxes they've checked have I guess upset the NCAA. So we'll see what happens with that too. But I just genuinely think it's like a well-run program in a lot of respects. So salute to them for cutting down nets and winning a national title. They're like for whatever it's worth, they're like a deserved champion. You know?
Let's talk about UNC real quick. I'm trying not to be a hater. But the one thing over the last 6 weeks or so or a month that really just chapped me was UNC. Yes, they did not win enough games early on, and they were quote unquote on the bubble. Like no one's denying that, because the way that the NCAA tournament works is you have to have, it's a merit based, performance based thing, right? Now we can argue about why and and what should matter and what shouldn't matter and whatnot. But like after they lost to UNC, after they lost to Wake, Miami, and Pitt, and did not have like anything good and had lost to every good team they played, they probably didn't have enough on their resume to be an NCAA tournament team had the tournament started that day. Right. So we could say that existed, right? And so because of that, you could say, well, they did a good job of winning enough games to then get to the tournament and winning the right games and so on, right? But watching the team over the last 6 weeks, it did not feel like a Cinderella story. It did not feel like I was watching a team that like the players were playing above their talent level. Mm-hmm. It didn't feel like there was just like, were they on a heater, right? Was Brady Manick and Caleb Love on a heater? Maybe, but good players get on heaters, right? It wasn't like this no-name guard who's you'll never hear from in a basketball setting again outside of the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, it wasn't like Andrew Platek got hot, you know what I mean? It wasn't like we have years of data that suggests Caleb Love and Brady Manick are good shooters. You know
right. And so it was hard for me to kind of differentiate or try to like maybe even agree with UNC fans particular, and maybe even some media types who wanted to make it this like I'm more mad like, well, you should have done this the whole time. You were always good. The talent was always there. And in college basketball, like talent is like, I don't know, you may weight it differently, BG, like with, looking at the coaching and plays. College basketball, though, only 5 players play at a time. Like if you have the most best players on the court in 90% of your games, which is basically what they did, I would say they had the best players, more better players on the court in every game that they played this year, except maybe Duke, if we're looking at raw talent.
Yeah.
Baylor maybe, and then
Tennessee, Kentucky, maybe like
Purdue. Like they were up there, and once they beat Duke and Cameron, I was like, look, this is a good team. Like, and they actually turned into be a great team. So I don't know how to really judge them. Like, I know they beat Duke, and that's a big deal. And the reason why they beat Duke this year is a big deal. And I'm cool with that, right? If you beat your rival to put your rival's coach into retirement, like that's pretty darn cool if you're a fan, right? And I could understand where that could be a seminal moment. But like, I don't know. I just thought they were really good. And like the way that people are reacting to this team of like all that they worked through, it's like, I just think they just finally started making some shots and playing better.
Yeah. Yeah. There's very little to think of UNC as this this plucky underdog outside of the fact that they had an 8 seed next to their name, which you addressed why
Right.
that's kind of faulty and this an underdog narrative, which look, if you work in the media and you were pushing that, I kind of get it because it's just it moves, it's emotional, right? So it moves the needle maybe a little bit more than hey, UNC is a good basketball team, and so that's going to maybe get you clicks or views or whatever it is, and so but then that's also very easy for fans to slurp that up. You know what I mean? If that
Yeah.
isn't what happened, that's just maybe one guess on my part. But yeah, it's no matter how you want to slice it, you can look at UNC's resume at the end of the season. Borderline top 15 offense, borderline top 30 defense. They're going to end up having a couple guys from this roster play in the NBA eventually.
And wasn't it? And you could go back on Ken Palm and actually narrow it to a certain range, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it something like the last 6 weeks? UNC literally was
they
were top 5 in both of those.
Yeah, in the last 10 games, they were top 10 in offense, top 10 in defense. They were 11 in offense, 6 in defense, and they, by the Bartorvik's catch-all meme, or not catch-all meme, catch-all number, they were the second best team in the country.
Right, and you don't play as the second best team in the country if that talent or whatever wasn't already in there.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I mean, on top of that too, it's so what I'm trying to say is it's the numbers support. Yes, this team was really good. The other thing is it's the eye test is the other side of this equation. And it's if you were watching this team play at the end of the year, you could see how they were playing and be okay, this is not a team that's just getting lucky or that just has just randomly stumbled into something that's kind of working. No. There's a system. It works. And then you saw them play against St. Peter's, and you're this looks like a 2 versus 15 seed.
Yeah.
That was exactly what that game looked like. I was it's dumb that this is in the Elite Eight. This is literally basically it felt like the equivalent of 2 or 3 seed against.
No, but no, BG, they were an 8 seed. I remember all the UNC fans were hey, we could lose to them. Kentucky. No, it's you're not losing to them. The way you're playing, you're not losing.
That was hilarious. That was a great time. It was a week. It was amazing.
So I don't know. I'd be curious to see what they come back with next year. It is funny. We joke about it how UNC they you can come up with a million theories of why it happens, but it seems as one of the top tier programs in the country, they seem to be able to keep a lot of guys that maybe. I don't think they're doing anything wrong, right? Roy Williams is not sitting there and basically being you suck. You are not going to go to the NBA. Or Hubert Davis is not doing that.
Yeah.
But for whatever, well,
that's cool now, though, Moose. That's fine.
The money's also cool now, which actually maybe that changes the game some too, right? Maybe you won't see a bunch of guys.
Well, I think it's about to happen.
Which is maybe that's probably a good thing for college basketball. You're not going to have. In theory,
it's good for these guys to have options, is what it is. It's good for them to have options, and the money is what opens this one option.
And you don't have to go, and now you don't have to worry about declaring. And if you don't get drafted, you're stuck going overseas, and then you can probably get paid the same amount of money staying in college as you would going to play in Spain.
It's insane that we did it that way to begin with. It's just nuts that we. I mean, it's not surprising, but it's just wild that we did it like that. But yeah, it's Armando Bacot he has a lot of options. If he wants to go, if Armando Bacot wants to go pro, he can totally do it. Maybe he would be drafted in the second round. Maybe he wouldn't. He'd certainly find his way into an NBA training camp and, summer league before that, and could maybe a G League roster, and then maybe even just crack an NBA roster right out. Or Armando Bacot can make who knows how much money in terms of name, image, and likeness, and come back and be the face of UNC basketball. That would return as maybe the favorite to win the championship, depending on who all comes back. The face of the ACC, you could rewrite the record books. You do all of that, and he could theoretically make more money doing that than maybe he would at the G League. You know what I mean? And so Yeah, it's just like whatever. What do you want to do? And at least now guys have options because literally as recently as 2 years ago, after the 2019-2020 season ended, Cassius Stanley at Duke, who's a guy that would have made a lot of money as like a flashy dunker, and would have made a lot of money like under like just easy would have been an easy guy to market and to appear in ads like in an age of name, image, and likeness money. But like when he declared for the draft in 2020, he was older for a freshman, and he was basically just like, yeah, I can't like justify. Like I talked about this with Coach K, and he agreed. Like I can't justify coming back for another season and then entering the draft a year later when I'm a year older. And like, it just, again, that was literally just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think now, like the same math would still apply in terms of like, your age matters for yourself as like a draft prospect. But the option of like coming back and earning a couple $100,000 to play another year at Duke or whatever, like, all right, that actually sounds like a pretty good gig. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so maybe you would do that. And so
it will be funny to see the same UNC fans who I kind of referenced about calling them an underdog. That they want to paint this picture of this underdog team, whatever, weren't expected to be there. Yet they're probably going to have the same roster back next year, and they're going to be mad if they're going to then be mad if they're not the preseason #1 team in the country.
Yeah, it is going to be.
But you can't have both. You can't have both things. You can't sit here and say we should be the #1 ranked team next year because we have all of our team back, but yet that same team you just wanted to say was these plucky guys who shouldn't have been there in the first place. But they probably should, right? If they all come back next year, or
it's going to be
they should be probably a top.
They're going to be really good just because they also have a good recruiting class coming in too. Like big shocker, good players want to play basketball at UNC. I know that's a big upset to everybody, but like the one thing for them will be like they know they're not going to bring Manic back unless I don't know. Like I know as soon as I said that, I looked at Moose because who knows? Maybe they'll find a way to bend the rules somehow. But it's like right now it seems impossible, if not incredibly, barring some unforeseen rule change, that Brady Manic is going to return for next season. So they will have to figure that out. It's like there aren't a lot of like 6'10" snipers floating around on planet Earth. You know what I mean? And if they are, most of them already play in the NBA. So that is something. But yeah, I mean, if you bring back RJ Davis in Armando Bacot, and we'll see we'll see what Caleb Love does. We'll see what Leaky Black does. We'll see if Kerwin Walton returns. Like maybe you still have something there. Puff Johnson looks like a really good piece for them. Dontre Styles looks like a player for them. So they've got a ways to go. But yeah, if you bring back Davis and Bacot, it's like everything else just like falls into place, especially once you add like one or two more bodies in from the portal that can like complement them.
Right. Moose, what you think? Come on, give us some thoughts. You didn't even watch the other night either, did you?
No, I didn't. And really what I heard you saying a minute ago, Goodson, about just having good players is that the long and short of that is Hubert Davis just isn't a good coach. Well, let's just be real. Like for the early part of the season, right? Why were they playing so badly? Is it just because the player stunk or because he can't coach? I mean,
I think the defense the offense was always pretty good. I think the defense was struggling and they couldn't settle on what they wanted their base defense to be with Manic and Bacot. And I think they simplified some stuff and were a little bit more conservative, which I think was the way to go. And they also just did a good job of like pinning the ball on one side of the court when they were like guarding side pick and roll and just funneled everything to Bacot in the middle. And so I think they did come to terms with what they wanted the defense to look like. Because if you go back to the Notre Dame game when they lost at South Bend, they were just they tried like 3 different strategies to like defend Notre Dame and like none of it worked. And it was like, all right, you got to pick one of these and just roll with it. Yeah. And they just played defense much better the last second half of the season. And I think a large part of that is because Leaky Black is good and they simplified stuff in terms of how they wanted to guard pick and roll.
Well, I mean, like, so my impetus for asking that question, right? Like, I have to tie all this back to NC State. So when Hubert was hired and when it was announced that Shire was going to take over for K at Duke, everybody in West Raleigh was like, holy shit, this is our time. And then Kevin Keats promptly shit the bed in Raleigh. Like it was an epic bed shitting, right? So now you're like, okay. So then you settle on, okay, maybe Hubert's just not good. Well, now they lost like 5 games all year or 6 or 7. I don't even know.
So they went 29-10
or whatever. And so, well, I say they finished second in the conference, right?
Yeah, they won. Yeah,
okay.
They lost 6 ACC games this season.
Yeah, so they finished second in the conference. They made the championship game, run to the Final Four. It's like, what are you going to do? And now it seems like nothing really stops with the Carolina train. Like you thought maybe a hiccup there, just like you think maybe a hiccup at Duke, but I don't think either one of those are going to happen now, given what we've seen, right? Yeah. Like I think they're so much bigger.
I think the Blue Bloods are just they're shielded from like the college, the college landscape. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day. Like it used to be, hell, even 5 years ago that. I'm going to use Radford or Norfolk State or whatever, lower mid-major programs. Their best players we're going to transfer, right? You have a good year at one of those schools, you're transferring somewhere next year, right?
Like St. Peter's.
ACC, right. You're transferring. Now, I think is going to hurt like an NC State is now because there's no rules, the transfer rule and all that. NC State and basically 90% of college basketball now is going to probably turn into more of a feeder program for the Blue Bloods. I think that's going to happen.
It could.
I think that's going to change the game a lot. So the Blue Bloods are still going to recruit the high school game like they normally have, and then now who's to say a Kentucky's not going to be able to pick? I'm going to use an example: a Manny Bates. Right, yeah. Manny Bates is going to sit there.
No. Manny Bates is going to UNC to backfill for,
and he might, because why wouldn't you? A, you probably can get money. B, you still want to win. I think generally these guys still want to go to a program where they have a chance to win. Like
for sure,
the NCAA tournament is still a cool thing to be a part of.
For sure,
and so like I think we get too bogged down with like the money aspect of things and all that, but like at some point these kids. Money may weigh more heavily than winning in some instances, with family upbringing. You don't know.
Yeah.
But winning is still important. And I think what's going to happen now is it's not we may have thought that, yes, if Coach K leaves and Hubert Davis leaves, that maybe there's an opening for NC State to like get a little bit closer. And I just think that the landscape, I don't want to say it's going to be harder, but State's not going to do it by having 3-4-year starters on their team because because what's going to happen is if one of those guys has a really good year, what's going to stop a UNC or a Duke or a Kentucky or a Kansas or heck, maybe throw Tennessee now or like good programs that are at an elite level right now from, hey, we have an opening at center. Can you come be our guy?
Yeah, for sure. No, there's this NBA free agency component to it, but without a salary cap. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So in these like 1-year flyer or multi-year flyer scholarships, and it's like if Jaquavion Smith and Darion Sebron weren't like NBA prospects, like who can test out the draft, it's like I'm sure they've been hearing from like Arizona or Kentucky or Kansas or whatever. Like that's just those programs doing their due diligence. I think because this line you're bringing up is something that I've heard for a decade now. I remember hearing it when State hired Godfrey because I was an undergrad at State when that happened, and that became the thing of like, can you wait out? Can you make a good hire, and then can you wait out Roy and Kay? And of course, it took literally 10 more bleeping years for those guys to retire because of course it did. But also like my thing is now what I'm starting to think is that like. If you're State, and this is like easier to say than it is to do, and I don't want to like overlook the uniqueness of this rivalry and like the proximity of Duke, State, and UNC, and how that creates an environment that's different from anywhere else in the country. But just like I think State needs to move past that paradigm of like we need this window. With Duke and UNC, there's real estate out here. Like all three of y'all can be good at the same bleep in time. Sure. And I see the way like some program, and like maybe things that broken differently. Maybe this would have happened with Kevin Keats too. But it's like I see Auburn got good under Bruce Pearl, I see Eric Musselman went to Arkansas and has made them an awesome program. And it's like, State probably could have, like, if they had been looking for a coach in 2019 as opposed to 2018, maybe they could have gotten, or 2017, maybe they could have gotten a guy like Eric Musselman. You know what I mean?
A lot of it's timing. A lot of it is, and now with the transfer portal, it's just going to be the roulette. And like, but you got to have a good year of doing it. Like like we talk about Steve Forbes in Wake Forest, he had a great year on the transfer portal, and that's probably going to bode well. Now, will he hit the same lottery next year? You don't know.
Now that's an interesting point because
I do think what I think Alondas Williams and Jake LaRavia doing well there meant was Wake Forest is now going to garner interest from like the best transfer prospects out there. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to come in and just automatically be great again. Mm-hmm. But if you're able to now go talk to the best, whoever the most sought after transfer is, maybe that guy is going to list, like you said, Auburn, Arkansas, Kentucky, Kansas, but then he's going to list Wake, and you're going to be like, why is Wake on there? And that guy's going to be like, well, this coach just took a guy who averaged 6 points a game and made him the ACC Player of the Year in his offense and style. Like, I at least should give it a look. And so,
the fact that LaRavia went from Indiana State to maybe a first-round draft pick, that Alondas Williams went from a rotation player in the Big 12. You can
sell that. You're selling that now. You're not selling this. You're not. The game has changed for everyone not in the blue blood in the sense of you're not selling. I can build you from an 18-year-old lanky freshman into a sharpshooter. Like that. That's still going to happen, but it's not going to happen nearly as much. It's going to be now. Hey, you come here and like I know you've been good, or you're kind of trying to find your way. I can get you going your way this year and make you into a prospect. And,
100%. And you could, again, it's like you could see this happening a couple of years before the transfer rule completely changed.
Yeah.
Remember when UNC got Cam Johnson from Pittsburgh? And it was sort of like, they were like, look, we didn't land a 5-star recruit in this cycle or whatever, but we got Cam Johnson, who's 21, is a sniper, and by the way, like that guy is like,
and you're playing with other good players too at the same time. Like
that guy now plays 30 minutes a night for the literally the best basketball team in the world. That happened in the span of like 4 to 5 years. You know what I mean? From like Pittsburgh to UNC to the Phoenix Suns to like here he is now. So
this conversation that's kind of been Kevin Keats' downfall. He had Al Freeman in year one, which turned out great.
Sam Hunt too.
And Sam Hunt, like those guys turned out to be great for that team, and they made names for themselves and, whatever. But since then, he has not done well in the transfer portal.
Pat Andre was supposed to be like one of the next big names.
Pat Andre, Wyatt Walker, Danny Dixon, like just.
Oh my God.
Just.
Oh God.
Not done well. So like, what are you out there selling now, right? Like, you come here and you get worse and you don't play. Like, hopefully Levi Watkins joining. I think that's going to be a good addition for State. He actually recruited well at Ole Miss, and I think there's a kid in the portal right now from Ole Miss who played well, who's actually visiting State this weekend. Ironically, so Levi's good. He's a good talent. Evaluator. He can coach, and he's also going to help bridge a big issue that players haven't come to State because of this issue, but there's been a lack of like cohesiveness between like former players and alumni and the current regime. And you can joke about the brotherhood, you can joke about the Carolina family, you can think that they're very cultish and kind of like it matters. And so stuff like that matters. Like there were stories, and I don't know how true they are, but there were stories of former players weren't allowed the access into like the practice facilities like nor other regimes were and other programs allow. And you kind of need that, and you need to have if you're NC State, you have to have all systems in place and everyone literally on the same page. Like. And such. So
I think especially as the sport becomes, as we've been sort of outlining, like as it becomes more transient and there's more player movement, I think that sort of like that
culture will mean. Like, I hate to say the word culture because that's such a very cliche word, but like culture probably means more now than it ever did.
100%. I mean, like I don't want to like speak out of line here. Like the death of Jim Valvano is tragic for so many reasons, most of which are probably very close and personal to his closest friends and family. But like, there's no through line for NC State like there was no like Dean Smith or Roy Williams or Mike Krzyzewski to like be like, no, I was here for a long time and I connect 1987 to 2017.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like that person just like doesn't. It's like kind of Derek Wittenberg, you know, but like it's not like a big figurehead like Dean, like Roy, like Krzyzewski. And I think that's something that State has like missed out on because of the incredibly tragic death of Jim Valvano. And so I think it matters to have guys like Ernie Myers and Derek Wittenberg still around the program for sure. Yeah. But it's like I think you're sort of like missing the big overarching guy that brings all of them that connects all of the dots. And then unfortunately you've just had like too many bad to so hires that have just like caused interest to erode a little bit, that have caused these sort of like schisms to become like bigger fractures, and just I don't know, like it's a lot of stuff has gone wrong. But yeah, I think it's a big deal to sort of like bring guys back into the fold and sell a version of NC State to recruits where it was like this team was actually pretty good, you know.
Like David Glenn, I remember David Glenn would always kind of like put the stat out there. It's like there's only like 15 schools in the country who have 2 national titles.
Yeah, right.
Like and again, we could talk about it. That's 40 years ago. It's irrelevant, and you have to start believing that more than just kind of like shunning it off. But
for sure,
you literally are one of like 15 to 20 schools in the entire country who plays college basketball that has national titles
in a cool city too. It's like the other thing. It's like that's why when I see like people like Eric Musselman recruit guys to Arkansas, either like Eric Musselman just signed 3 5-stars in the 2022 recruiting class to go play at Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Put your money back up, Moose.
You're telling me you couldn't get people to come play? Like I've chosen to live in Raleigh. I like living here. Like you telling me you couldn't get people to want to come play in the ACC and live here? Like it exists. And so like I think I've seen I like that. Moose, you want to send that my way. I'd appreciate that.
That's all I got, buddy.
I've seen a lot of doom and gloom with State basketball online recently, and I get it. There's very little to be happy about. And
it's all Herb Sendek's fault.
And it is amazing to have seen, like, again, the day that Duke and UNC are getting ready to play for the national semifinals on Saturday is the day that like Darion Sebron announces that he's going to test the draft honors. It was like, God, State. It's just so on brand in this moment. And like, to be clear, Darion Sebron is awesome, and he should absolutely, explore his draft options and
should absolutely stay in school at NC State.
Okay, 100%. But just like all it takes is just like one hire. You know what I mean? It just takes getting the right guy in, and I guess that's what makes the situation with Keats like super like rather depressing right now, is because it was like maybe he was going to be that guy, and then just like everything broke the wrong way. And now you're kind of stuck with him. And now it's like, well, it's like you can't even turn the page on the bad right now, because like he's just like installed as coach and seemingly like immovable for the time being.
Yeah.
If you go back to when he was hired, right? So like after State fired Gottfried or whatever, and the national media was like, I don't know who they're going to get. This is just the same thing they do all the time. And then when Keats was hired, everybody's like, holy shit, that is a tremendous hire. And it's a big whiff. It just really just didn't work out.
Yeah, I think there was like, again, there was definitely some like bad luck involved with some of this stuff, but yeah, the hand was just not played particularly well, and now you're at a tough spot. One of the things I do want to circle back to, because you were talking about Forbes and Wake Forest, what I think is interesting is now, obviously the rebuild process has changed in college basketball. It's like you don't need 4 years to, but I do wonder, it's like now Wake didn't make the NCAA tournament, but they won 25 games. They went to the third round of NIT. They had the 2 All-ACC guys. They had the ACC player. They had the ACC Coach of the Year. And now I just think there is like a lot of pressure on them to keep it up next season, right?
Yeah.
And like that's just how these things go. Like, but things don't grow like in a linear fashion. Because you won 25 games this season doesn't mean you win 27 next year. You know what I mean? And so if Forbes is unable to go out and get like two guys that are the caliber of Jake LaRavia and Alanis Williams in Dallas Walton and Kadeem C, who ended up being a pretty good center platoon for them this season. And like, who knows what Isaiah Musius is going to do? Like, he's testing the draft out right now. Who knows what Davey Williamson's going to do? It's like, Wake's about to turn over a ton of their roster. Carter Wicks transferred out. And so it's just like, yes, it's great that you can like circumvent this multi-year rebuild. And like, you can get good quickly. You can microwave that shit. But then it's also like, it can also elevate the expectations to being higher than maybe they were, than maybe you probably would have projected them to have been heading into year 3 before you started your first season. And like, that can create uneasiness in the fan base too. You know what I mean? If like all of a sudden you come out and you play 500 basketball for the first half of the month or for the first half of the season next year, it's like you may have some fans upset, even though like that's probably just like logically where you're supposed to be. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think that's going to be like an interesting side effect of how these things play out. I think even Keats caught a whiff of that because like they went to the tournament unexpectedly in 2018 in his first season.
Yeah.
And then they just miss out on it the next year because the net is dumb. And then COVID the next year. Yeah. And it's like, and now they haven't been back since then. And it's just like, wait, I thought you were doing the thing and you're not doing the thing now, you know?
Right.
So I don't know.
Let's pivot real quick. 2 more things. Real quick in NBA, I woke up this morning and saw that the Los Angeles Lakers are not going to be in the playoffs. And I immediately asked the question, how does the NBA let that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it is
and I don't need to get you can give me I don't need like the reasons why, and it could just be like they were old and injured a lot of the year, and maybe that's just the answer.
True.
They literally were just old and injured, but it's not good for the NBA, BG. It's not good for me. I haven't watched the NBA, and I don't plan on watching them unless the Hornets somehow make some crazy run, and they're not going to do that because they're the Hornets. Like,
no, the Hornets are also like destined for the 10 seed and similar last year, and a loss in the play-in, and that to be the end of the season. That may not happen, but that seems to be where they're headed right now. Yeah, the Lakers, like, they just put together a bad roster. Like, the pieces don't fit. Anthony Davis was hurt for, like, half the season. So that was a big, big problem for them. LeBron was awesome this year. Like, LeBron was, like, a top 6 to 7, 8 player in the NBA, might win the scoring title at age 40 or 39, however old he is. And, like, it just – nothing else worked. like, literally nothing else worked. And the Russell Westbrook trade, which they made last offseason, that proved to be a disaster. They traded away all of their like good 3-and-D wings, the guys that you need around LeBron and AD. Those guys were gone. And like, I don't think Westbrook was like as bad as some people made him out to be this season. Like, he can still get to the rim, but like just a bad fit with LeBron and the rest of the pieces LA had. And yeah, dude, they're like bottom 5 or 6 in the NBA in both offense and defense. Like, they stink. Like, they have a super expensive roster with 3 Hall of Famers on it, and they're not good. They've been a bad team basically the entire season. And, like, thankfully the year is coming to a close for them. And the only thing is, it's like they don't have a lot of leverage to pull in the offseason in terms of, like, improving this roster. There's some stuff they can try, but it's not going to be easy to like move the Russell Westbrook contract to like get another like max player in there. They don't really have the assets to like grease the wheels of those trades. That's why they didn't make any moves at the deadline this season. They just don't have the stuff to do it. So they're in a bad spot. LeBron usually finds a way to like make it work, but I don't know. Bad season, and they're heading into what is looking to be like a rather scary offseason too. So not great for the NBA. But if you're someone like me that kind of enjoys laughing at the Lakers for doing dumb stuff, then this season's been at least had a hint of that. That's been kind of fun. So
fair enough. Last thing, the Masters.
There you go.
Hello, friends.
The golf.
Tiger's gonna win. He's going to win. He said yesterday he was not going. The only reason he's there is because he thinks he's going to win. If he's not going to think he's going to win, he's not going to be there. No, I'm excited. I love this tournament. I love golf. I love watching golf. I've gotten really deep into like golf every week. I'm in a pool every week picking tournaments, so you kind of start following like the careers, and you start picking up on like certain courses are better for certain guys. But the thing about this course is it literally you don't have to hit it the longest. And it's set up for like the scoring to be really bunched. It has the easiest cut to make in golf because the field's very limited. So it brings them a lot of guys are in there over the weekend. It's just, and Augusta is just an awesome place to watch, like from a viewing such. So any Masters thoughts? I have my auction tonight. Most people wait. Most people try to get their money back on TurboTax and get their refund back. This is where
it gets spent.
This sets the stage for the rest of the year tonight. Any Masters thoughts?
Is Tiger playing with house money? No, for real though. I think it's a win if he makes the cut. It's a lot to ask.
He's like I don't think he's ever missed the cut. Like that's the thing.
When's the last time he played a full like an organized 18?
So he played in the
2020 Masters, the COVID Masters that was in the fall.
Yeah. Right, he won that one.
And I know it's all hearsay, but like Fred Couples, him and Freddie Couples are like buds, and so they play practice rounds together. And they played this morning. And again, like I don't think Fred Couples would ever come out in an interview and say, "Yeah, I was playing with him today, and I don't think he's got it. Like he stinks. Like I don't like." So I get that, but he asked him, "Is like how does he look compared to like when you did practice rounds with him in 18 and 19?" And Fred Couples is like, he looks the same, if not better. And it's like course knowledge is such a big deal there. And again, you can get around there. Like it sounds super stupid, but every par 5 you can get 2 and 2, so you can in theory have 4 eagle chances or 4 birdieing every par 5 in any given round is not abnormal, I guess is a good way to say it. And then so in making the cut, if there's 90 guys in the field, the cut is the top 50 in ties.
Yeah.
So 60 guys can make the cut. Like
yeah.
I
mean, the last event that we saw him play was with
father-son, and he looked good.
And he looked incredible.
Like, and he looked like a professional golfer who like had not been off for an entire year, basically.
Yeah.
So.
Now, granted, they're riding carts around there, so and the walking of the course, 18 holes over 4 days, that's a big part of the deal. But I didn't expect him to hit the ball like he was hitting it in that event and putting it where he wanted to put it. And granted, it's a much easier course that he was playing, but still, you got to hit it and you got to put it where you want to put it. And he looked like Goodson said, amazing, really, for most of that, what I saw. And so I don't. What are the odds for him to win this?
He's like 40 to 50 to 1. Okay. But context purposes, that's like it's probably around like a top 30 player in the world. The 30th ranked player in the world probably has equivalent odds to win that. So. It's pretty high for a guy in theory who's not played it. It's very high for a guy who hasn't played in a year and a half and all that stuff. So understanding that. So
yeah, but it's pretty good for a guy that almost had a leg amputated.
Yeah, but is he going to win? Like probably not. But like, do not be shocked if he's in contention. Do not be shocked. He would not come back. I legit believe him. Like I think he's one of those guys. Like we watch these guys as they get older in all sports, and you're like. Are you staying around too long? Are you washed? Like I don't think he's going to be the guy that even though he could play at the Masters for the next 30 years, I don't think he's going to show up just to do the ceremonial walk around just because I can play here type deal that some guys still do. Like Fred Couples isn't winning it, but he still shows up. But also Fred Couples is actually in decent shape and is like not embarrassing himself. But there are guys. Ian Woosnam is a guy that won back in the 80s. Like he has sucked the last few years. He's not playing this year because I think it's more like Augusta National. Again, he could play if he wanted to, but I think that some people kind of give you a tap on the shoulder, being like, "Look, man, like, what are you doing?" But Tiger, I think, is going to be a guy. If he felt like next year he just does not have the game to win anymore, I think he wouldn't show up again.
Yeah. It's just like, look, while he's there, he makes it significantly more important and interesting. And also, like, yeah, I mean, the only people that would really care about this stuff are like executives at CBS. But like, if Tiger makes the cut and is golfing on Saturday, a week after CBS got Duke UNC, or I guess that was was that on TBS? Actually?
CBS, yeah.
Never mind. Then actually, I was going to make some point about CBS executives being really happy because you would get Tiger playing, golfing 1 week after Duke UNC. But I guess that doesn't actually.
It should be fun, and kudos to Tiger. Like, if it wasn't for Tiger, you wouldn't have the tournament like it is now. Like the BG, I know you're so far removed from golf world and such of like who's good. Who some of the players are.
Yeah.
But golf is literally as deep now as it's ever been. And like to the point where there are, and again, because I watch it basically every week now, there's 25 to 30 guys who, if they won, you would not be shocked. Whereas that wasn't the case 5 years ago, even 5 years ago. I mean, there's the guy who won last year, Hideki Matsuyama, has worse odds than Tiger. I mean, so that's how deep, that's how far down the odds that you can go look and be like, God, there's Bryson DeChambeau. He's doing some injuries. His odds are even worse than everybody else. Like it is super deep. Everybody's really, really, really good. And it's kind of all credit to Tiger because it got a generation, basically this generation of young guys basically got started whenever he won the Masters and made golf like, I guess, kind of cool, I guess is the best way to say it.
I feel bad for my son if Tiger's in contention on Sunday because we're gonna be in Charlotte at a travel ball tournament, and I hate it for the dude, but he's gonna have to find a way to get to the ballpark because I'm not leaving the television. Like I just. I know I have phones.
You think the Masters has their app, and the Masters app literally is the best of any streaming app for any tournament or of any sport. They are the best. It literally is the best apparatus. You can watch anything. It's so funny. The TV coverage doesn't usually start till like 3:00 in the afternoon, but the Masters app has like 17 different, like, here's 1 and 2, here's 3 and 4, here's 5, 6, and 7. Here's Tiger only. Here's Tiger using the bathroom. Here's Tiger eating lunch. And I would watch those. I would watch Tiger use the bathroom and eat lunch. Like, that's part of it. So, all right. We actually stayed a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah.
But it was a good conversation. We talked some UNC. We didn't hate a ton.
Yeah.
We talked some State. We talked some Tiger. We talked some Lakers. So, if anybody's watching this, I don't know. It's going to be on the podcast later. We'll make Permar do that. I guess we'll be back Friday unless Tiger doesn't tee off till Friday afternoon, so I'm good for the show Friday. So we should be good to go.
Perfect. All right, boys. Good seeing you.
See ya. Peace.